Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Gary A. Swaby, and you're now listening to Snowfall Aftermath. We are back once again. I'm here with Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. How are you doing, Rich?
Doing good, Gary. What's up, listeners and viewers?
What's up, indeed? So we saw a lot of nice engagements after that last episode. We saw some comments, some likes. Some people subscribed as well, so big shout outs to those people, and I'm glad people are enjoying our recaps and our theories on where Snowfall is heading and everything. So as we guessed, episode 5 was pretty intense, and so that means we're gonna have a pretty interesting episode with with this recap and our thoughts and takeaways. So we're in for something special here, and we want to make sure all of you people listening get involved too. So definitely leave your comments, let us know what you think is happening in Snowfall and where you think things are headed, and definitely also leave your feedback too if you wish to on Snowfall Aftermath. But with that being said, this week I'm going to start with the takeaways since last week Richard started with it. So in this show, we basically each just give our main takeaways from the episode, and then we have a discussion after the fact, and then have some predictions for what's going to happen in the next episode. So I will set things off for this week. So this is for Snowfall Season 4, Episode 5. So firstly, uh, so like Scully did some great acting in this episode. I just want to say that first of all, because I know I think the actor, if I'm correct, he's not really like a proper actor. He was actually a gangster, right? He was in a gang or something before.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
he's been in a couple of movies though. He's been in a good amount of movies.
oh, okay.
He was in The Wood.
Hmm.
Um, that's why I think a lot of people remember him. He played Stacy, the character, of the girl that Mike was trying to get with, and eventually did
Right.
get with.
Did,
Um,
did did he do some time or something? Cause I know he was on Vlad TV and but I didn't watch the video because I'm not watching Vlad at the moment. But um,
yeah, I believe he has done some time. Um,
okay.
I also didn't see those interviews in length, but
Hmm.
he's been in a couple of movies, in a couple of different types of movies, and in a couple movies he was in jail as well. So, but
Okay.
I just don't think he's really gotten a chance to really like a highlight, you know, how good of an actor he is until you come to a show like this, where obviously the character is the character he's playing. I mean, he knows a lot about that lifestyle, knows people that have actually been Bloods, Crips, etc. So he can bring a lot to the character.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because it seems like he's had some kind of experience because he's nailing this role like right now,
Hmm.
and in this episode where those scenes where he was at the hospital, and everything after his daughter had been murdered and everything, like just the emotion that he was like showing, it just made me feel that tension even more. Like, wow, this guy is gonna go crazy, on Leon or Franklin or whoever, like whenever he gets the chance. So I appreciated his acting during those scenes because it just heightened that level of tension for me. So kudos to him. And also, so obviously there were a few scenes in this episode where Louis and Jerome were kind of weighing up the odds of the situation they're in with Franklin, and they were going through all the options they have, and of course they thought about getting rid of Leon, and all I was thinking during this was like, okay, Franklin, he's going to be a bit reluctant to do this, but I feel like the previous tension between Leon and Louis might make Louis try and, she might do a little extra to try and persuade Franklin that, this is what they need to do. And this could still be the case even after this episode. I feel like she's still going to be trying to make a case that they should get rid of Leon. So I
It,
mean,
it, I want to make a quick comment on that before you move forward.
yeah,
I think people should definitely be prepared for what's ahead on the show. I know if you go back and you see the season 4 trailer, it looks to me like Louie, might have gotten hurt because she was in the hospital and Jerome was holding her hand. So I would hope that that does not mean that the Louis character is going to get killed off. But the irony is if she is killed off, everyone who's been watching Snowfall knows she was the one that backed Franklin from day one when he got involved with all of this. And then Jerome was telling him, "Yeah, you don't want to get in too deep with this because a lot of things can happen." So
yeah,
it'll be very ironic if something happens to her character, but hopefully that's not what happened. But I just want to put that out there because it is in the season 4 trailer that they show her in the hospital bed, and Jerome is right there next to her. So people should definitely be prepared for something because I guarantee a lot of stuff is going to probably happen towards the end of the season.
oh yeah.
Um, so people definitely prepare for that for sure.
Yeah, at least one person on Franklin's side is getting hurt this season. Like that's a given
Yeah.
because the stuff that's happening in this, like, yeah, it would be unrealistic for nothing to happen. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I could definitely see Louis getting hurt. But yeah, so moving on. So I feel like Leon also did a great job with his acting in this episode because throughout the episode he really made me feel sorry for the character because he didn't mean to do what he did. Obviously, it was a very bad thing, but he didn't mean it, and now it's like the whole world is against him now at this point. So I feel like he did a good job, like playing that with the character. And then one of the things I was actually thinking since last week was that he's gonna need to get a haircut because that afro like makes him stand out, like makes him stand out too much. And of course they addressed that because Franklin's mom came to the apartment where he's kind of hiding, and she braided his hair for him, and then he was breaking down crying during that scene and everything. So that was well played by the acting, the actors and the writing team. So we also had some scenes where Gustavo was being a little weird in this episode. Like he got a bit drunk. He broke into his girl's house with the kids and everything, and then the cops came. And then he tried to fight the cops, and Teddy had to bail him out. So clearly Gustavo is like he's acting up because he knows that Teddy is CIA and he can bail him out. So I wonder how far he's going to push that. Does he feel like he can do whatever he wants now, just because he's dealing with Teddy and Teddy is a CIA agent. So it's going to be interesting to see like how far Gustavo tries to push the boundaries of that friendship that they have. And also when I saw Irene is kind of not investigating, but she's she visited those prisoners to try and get them to snitch on Teddy. So I think that maybe later on this might be something that Teddy and Gustavo will have to fix, like once they kind of hear that this story is coming out, because I'm sure once Irene does some more poking around, she there's some flags are going to be raised, and I feel like Teddy is going to hear something about somebody following up all these leads, and then I think him and Gustavo will have some cleaning up to do, and those two prisoners we saw, they might be part of the cleanup. Like they might have to get rid of those guys. So yeah.
You recall that they did business with those gentlemen in the past seasons, and Teddy got them arrested. So I mean, that's a situation where you probably should take out anything that could expose you. You probably should get rid of those people altogether. But by them getting locked up, I guess they figure, well, we won't have to worry about this ever again. But now that's about to come full circle, it looks like.
Yeah, exactly. But speaking of cleanup, though, obviously we see, Franklin visits Teddy as well to kind of like, try and find out what the cops know about the Leon shooting and everything. And then we
Yep.
see that Reed goes to visit Franklin again later on in the episode, and he lets him know that everybody knows Leon did it, and they're gonna be coming after him heavy, and because there is a connection, it's going to kind of fall back on Franklin. Like that, it's gonna be a very hot situation, so he has to kind of do something about it. That's kind of the conclusion they came to. But I was wondering as well, at this time, like, because obviously Reed knows that, if things get too hot for Franklin, he's going to have to, part ways with him, because otherwise you know, it's going to connect to what he's doing. So, yeah, I'm wondering, like, if he, in the back of his mind, is thinking, things of that nature, like, oh, I might have to sever ties with Franklin, or, I might have to find somebody else or something like that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then Franklin was very frustrated, and he kind of like lost his cool, and he knocked all the stuff off the desk and everything. So you know the heat is getting to him.
Well,
But was you gonna say something?
oh no, I was gonna say yeah. I believe they definitely planted that seed that Teddy's gonna have to consider other options. And then the confrontation that Franklin has at the very end of the episode with Manboy, talking about yeah, well I got the plug, so that he
Yeah.
better hope that Manboy does not find out who the plug is, because that's it for Franklin. Game
Yeah.
over.
Yep. So speaking of Manboy, as everyone guessed, Scully and Manboy kind of they come together, and they kind of squash the beef. They put their ties, they kind of just they squash the beef basically, and and yeah, so like obviously Manboy had to go through his sister first for this to happen, to kind of he had to make peace with her, because I know they had a situation or falling out of some nature. And then later on we see in the episode, Scully he held the gun up to Manboy, and Manboy was actually pretty brave in that situation, like, because Scully was emotional, so really, he could have like fired at him, because you can't predict how he was going to act in that moment, because he was obviously very emotional. But yeah, they managed to squash the beef, and of course this isn't good for Franklin and Leon. So then, later on, Leon sees himself on the TV after the newscasters, post his picture with his friend. I forgot the name of his friend. But yeah, basically they're saying these two are responsible for the murder of the child. And Leon sees this on TV, and from there he knows that this is serious, and that, everybody's going to be gunning for him. Cops are going to be coming for him and everything. But then he makes the stupid decision to leave, to leave the apartment, and go and get the money, go collect the money from his spot. And yeah, this was a stupid move, because he really should have known that Franklin, once Franklin saw that broadcast on TV, Franklin was going to put some kind of plan in motion to help him. So he should have just waited for Franklin to come. And then, he could have told Franklin that, hey, I've got some money to collect from this place, and then they could have arranged for that to happen, to collect the money. So
that's exactly what I was thinking. I know that there are a lot of people that have had commented on this, and they say all of this is because of Franklin. Well, yeah, everybody played their role in this situation. Franklin, however, was very indecisive, taking his time to decide how he wanted to act. And essentially, Leon made that decision for him when he decided to leave. And then they both end up getting caught by Scully. So now Scully knows that, Leon has some help. And this puts him in a very bad situation with Franklin as well. But yeah, Franklin told him earlier in this episode, don't call anybody, don't go anywhere, just stay here. And so that's why I was surprised that he did leave when he saw that. It's like, man, that's not good. But hey, it is what it is.
Yep. So of course, something was gonna go wrong when Leon made that decision, and Scully was actually waiting outside because after feeling that pressure from his girl, because he
Hmm.
was getting a tattoo of his daughter at his home, and she was like, "Why are you getting the tattoo? Why aren't you out looking for Leon?" So he went and did that, and of course he waited outside Leon's spot where he was likely to be, and he caught him while he was getting the money, and then he ran after him, and luckily Franklin and Jerome pulled up in the car, and they was able to save Leon, but Scully has now seen that
Yep.
Franklin is protecting him, so
Yep.
now this is very serious and very dangerous for everyone. And then, like you mentioned before, there was the scene at the very end with Manboy and Franklin where they have a conversation. And Manboy basically, says that he respected Franklin because he was all business and everything. But, now, he makes it clear that, there will be blood spilling, basically, because, they want Leon. And Franklin is clearly protecting Leon, and they have that little exchange about the plug where Franklin says, "I'm the one with the plug. You need me." Manboy basically says, "Me and Scully got all the territory." So yeah, and that's how it ends. There's no resolution to the conversation. It's just we're out for blood, and you better be careful, and that's pretty much it.
Hmm.
So yeah, this puts Franklin in a very vulnerable situation because he does kind of need them to keep making the money he's making. And all Manboy and Scully need to do is find the plug, and if they manage to do that, all it will take is for someone to follow Franklin and watch where he goes, who he sees, and then if they get that, then Franklin is disposable at that point. So
Hmm.
this definitely puts Franklin and his people, his whole team, in a very tight jam. Like you said, because they don't know the plug, they could just choose to hurt somebody close to Franklin just to put
Yep.
pressure on him. So it doesn't even have to be Franklin that they go after. It could be anyone at this point. So yeah, things are gonna get very serious now. But yeah, let's get to your takeaways. So, what did you have to talk about from the episode?
All right, so I agree with a lot of the things you had to say. I'm just going to add on a little bit to certain sections. I have four main takeaways. So first and foremost, let's talk about Gustavo. We obviously know that he's still reeling from what happened to his family. Not really able to process that situation. That was why he did get drunk, and then it's just like it's a lot that he's going through as well as a character. But you asked a very good, you made a very important statement when you said that it'll be very interesting to see if that's going to be an issue with Teddy moving forward. Now we did know as the episode progressed, he did apologize to Teddy for his behavior, but again, when he got arrested, he said he was telling the officers, "I'm with the CIA." So
Yeah.
this guy is someone that you have to be careful with. It kind of feels to me like what they have shown us this season is that all of the three main characters, Franklin, Gustavo, and Teddy, they're very unstable. They're under a lot of pressure, and you see that they're trying to process how they react to that. In the case of Franklin, he's not necessarily the Franklin we remember from the past. He's not making smart, calculated decisions. He's a little indecisive, not really 100% sure of himself. So, and also he's struggling with the fact that he's having issues with Leon, the fact of everything, how everything fell out with Mel, and also the fact that he's walking around with the cane. So there's a lot going on with him. With Gustavo, everything was cool with him at the beginning of the season until you saw him witness it. He found out that his cousin got killed, and then that kind of turned everything upside down for him. And then they had issues with those guys at the borders as well, the corrupt cops, etc. And with Teddy, we've seen, like I mentioned on our previous recap, this guy started smoking. they had one scene in the first episode where he was smoking and then he started snorting. So obviously he's dealing with a lot of the pressure. Like I mentioned before, he's basically separated himself from his family. His baby's mom and his son. They're no longer a part of his life, at least from what we know, because we have not seen him contact them at any point this season. So it's like they're all dealing with the pressure of this situation, of what they are actually doing, and it is impacting them. So and going back to Gustavo, uh, definitely have to be careful that he don't really go off again like a loose cannon. But I mean, we'll see what happens. And then one other quick point that I will add with Teddy, because I didn't mention this before, the scene, I believe it was in episode 1 or 2, when he met up with Avi and shot that guy because he's like, "Where are my weapons? Where are my weapons?" So yeah, he's definitely fallen off and gotten very erratic as well. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with all three of these characters as things intensify. Because I can only imagine things are going to start to spiral even more out of control over the next couple of episodes. But
Yeah,
we'll
because
see.
like to me, like, because there's three main points usually with these like drug empires. So like
Hmm.
you have the rise, of the empire or whatever, where they're on the come up, they're hustling, they're growing, they're growing their influence and everything, and then you
Hmm.
have the peak where like they're on top, they're making the most amount of money they've ever made before, and everything seems great. It seems like they can keep doing this and not get caught or whatever. And then the third point is when it starts to go downhill, and it seems to me like this is where we are in this story now. Like we are at the point where it's all going downhill.
Yeah,
And like you said, all three characters, Franklin, Gustavo, and Teddy are they're not as calculated as they were before. They're making erratic moves and doing things based on emotion. So it feels like we are really getting close to the end of this story sort of thing. Now we talked about this before, and I can definitely see another season, at least
hmm
one more. But it definitely feels like we're on that downturn of these characters. That like we're starting to see the downfall of the empire. So
I
that's
agree.
yeah.
And to segue into the downfall of the empire, it
Mm.
looks as though Irene will play a very major role in all of that,
Oh
because
yeah.
they wanted to remind you in this episode now that she has the full support of the news station. This is going to be a very major issue. And if I had to make a guess as to the person she's going to eventually get information from, I still believe that it's going to be Elton, because I think he's starting to see now, as he saw at the end of this episode when they had the news report about Leon and his friend's name is Fatback. Um, when he saw that, he just left the room immediately. I think he's really starting to really despise what is becoming of Los Angeles and Franklin's involvement in it. So I can see him definitely helping Irene, or at least giving her some information that points her in the direction to make sure that Franklin pays the price for what he has done. So we'll see how that escalates. But I really feel like they want to remind you that, yes, this is someone who can blow everything up. And again, she already spoke to Melanie. She's been talking to these other Colombian guys that are incarcerated. So it's only a matter of time before she comes up on Franklin and Teddy. And as you said, I'll be very curious to see what Teddy's response is going to be when he finds out that Irene has been looking into him. He may have a moment or two where I think I need to snort. I definitely got to snort something now. I got to smoke something now because so much stress, so much pressure. Um, but they definitely have to pay attention to this, and I'm curious to see how they're going to really make that happen. But we'll find out.
Yeah.
But it
Like,
definitely all is connected to the downfall.
oh yeah, for sure. And I believe Irene's role is based on like a real life reporter who
Yep.
uncovered these things. I totally forgot the reporter's name, but there was like I watched Freeway Ricky Ross's documentary a while ago, And I also like binged all of his like interviews on DJ Vlad as well, where he talks about this stuff. This was
Yeah.
before Vlad disrespected our people, so yeah, that's why I was watching Vlad. But yeah, so like there was a reporter who kind of uncovered the whole CIA part of this thing because you know Rick Ross, like the real Rick Ross, he actually didn't know that the people he was dealing with was CIA, like how Franklin knows. So obviously there are some differences in the show Snowfall. It's loosely based on Freeway Ricky Ross. It's not exactly. So there are differences
Yeah.
here because Franklin clearly knows that he's dealing with the CIA, but Rick Ross didn't know, and he didn't know until after he was locked up. He didn't know like about the Nicaragua War and how it
Hmm.
connects and everything. So it wasn't until this reporter uncovered everything that's when he kind of learned about it, and he even kind of befriended the reporter, I believe, as well, somewhat. And
So
but that reporter, I believe, ended up dead as well later. So if I remember correctly. I could be wrong
so
about that, but yeah.
so here's the thing.
Mhm,
Yeah, there was a movie that came out called Kill the Messenger,
mhm.
and the journalist in that movie was a journalist named Gary Webb.
Yeah,
Uh, that
that rings
is
a bell. Yeah.
that is who they possibly based this Irene character off of.
Mhm,
But like you said last week, how with Freeway Rick,
mhm.
that Franklin is a different. They've made changes to the character and all this other stuff. This could just be like they're putting their own spin on the character. It may not be entirely about Gary Webb, but definitely Gary Webb did play a role in exposing this information in Los Angeles back in the day. So it definitely is a variation on it. So with that said, I don't know if it's going to end. The story is going to end exactly the same way as it ended for that journalist.
Mhm.
It could definitely change, but yeah, that's because I've definitely seen people talk about Gary Webb and how it's connected to the show and stuff like that. So it's definitely based off of that, but I just think they've changed the character obviously, and they're going to possibly have his her story play out a little bit differently, I guess. But we'll have to wait and see um, how it all unfolds. But
Yeah, and this is just a reminder that us Garys are capable of wonderful things. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
yeah, absolutely, I agree. Absolutely, I agree, 100%. Um, so two other quick takeaways I wanted to point. I know you already mentioned that. I again talking about Snowfall and the excellent writing. I mentioned last week that I really appreciated how. I mean, I didn't like the fact that they had to kill Scully's daughter. Her name is Tiana. I didn't like
Yeah.
that they had to kill her to really emphasize and bring together Manboy and Skully. But yeah, I felt like sooner once that happened, and we saw the preview for this week ahead of time, then we knew that possibly they were going to come together. So that's fine. But the question that I do have is obviously, they have a common enemy now in Leon, and they will come after him. But the question that I would have is what would stop them after they get Leon? Because obviously, Scully's baby's mom, girlfriend, she is the one that said that they need to get Leon for her. They need to kill Leon. So after they kill Leon, what's to say that Manboy doesn't turn on Scully once again? Because if there is money to be made from selling drugs, I think and they're all about the money. I kind of feel like that doesn't mean that they won't still turn on the other once they get what they want. So I'm curious to see how that plays out because Manboy is not a character that you can really trust. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously he's making efforts to repair his relationship with his sister because when they had the conversation at the hospital in this episode, he alluded to the fact that he didn't really know his niece that well, and that was why his sister felt like, oh, you're just coming around because you want things to be peaceful now, and you just want to apologize because you want things to be peaceful now. Okay, yes, because he wants them to work together to take out Leon, but after Leon is no longer an issue, I kind of think you definitely have to worry about Manboy once again, because I feel like that character can still turn on someone else. But I'll be curious to see that, because again, the way that one thing that they did a very good job in this episode is, you've already mentioned it, a lot of very emotional performances. And I kind of feel like whenever you watch a TV show or a movie and you see a character gets killed, then obviously you're instantly thinking about the reaction of, okay, well, how long is it before this person is going to take out the person that killed them? This
Mm-hmm.
entire episode, it was building up to showing you what was the fallout and how they dealt with it emotionally. Because I feel like in society, at least I don't know if the same is for the UK, but for here, especially in America, there's this thing where they really don't feel like guys are emotional when things happen. They don't really
Yeah.
process the stuff, and they don't really have an emotional response. So I appreciated that they really did have Leon. The actor's name is Isaiah John. He had an excellent performance in last week's episode and this week's episode, especially with the crying and everything. Because it really shows you that he really was sincere, and that he really didn't want to hurt the girl. And that's another point that I don't really know if people really paid attention to with the show, is that I believe it was in season 2, right? When him and Kevin was plotting to take out Lucia, if you recall, Leon said, we never take out kids, we never take out women. That's why it hit him so emotionally hard when he accidentally shot the girl. And that's why it was hard for him to process it. And I know there are some people that believe that he should have killed the mother. No, he's not going to do that, because he was shocked that he even shot her daughter in the first place.
Yeah.
So I completely understand that reaction 100%. But just to finish off with the point that I was making about the emotional toll that it takes on the characters in this particular episode, it's just that the way everything was done, how you show Leon was struggling for most of the episode, it really plays with your heartstrings, especially if you're a Leon fan. You don't want to see the character get killed, but as I said last week, something has to happen to the character, because it's not a good thing for someone to kill a kid and then there's no consequences at all coming from it. So we'll find out what those are long term. But one last point I want to make before we talk about a few other things. The significance of the scene where Leon is getting his hair braided. I thought that was very well done, because I instantly thought of the first episode of this season when Skully was doing his daughter Tiona's hair. And that was why they had that shot when Leon was getting his hair and he started crying, and then they had a shot of the camera panning down, and then they show you the viewpoint of the girlfriend and the fact that she was holding her daughter's clothes, reminiscing a thing about her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I believe that was put there to remind you just that did happen, and the emotional connection as to how it felt that now she doesn't have a daughter anymore, and Leon is still sad, processing the fact that he played a role in all of that.
Yeah.
So that was very well done, and yeah, I mean, it just an excellent episode from as far as really showing emotion with these actors, the actresses as well, to really show you the weight of what had happened. And unfortunately, I feel that there are more tragic things that are going to happen as the season progresses. But I do want to give the writers a little bit of props on one particular scene, because I know we saw the trailer last week. We saw the scene where Franklin had the gun.
Oh yeah.
I will admit, I laughed at that scene. I laughed at that scene, the dialogue, and then they smiling, and yeah, he's talking about, yeah, I'm the smart one. I've always been the smart one, and Leon's like, well, I don't care, and then you see Franklin says, okay, bam, shoots him. I thought that was a funny little thing in there, because I know a lot of people saw that last week. They're like, whoa, Franklin would never do this. So I'm glad they established that it was a dream. But again, the stress, the paranoia, the strain, and the emotion, all of it was important to show just how impactful things are on people when they do certain things that they know they should not have done. So I have to give them props. They did a fantastic job this whole episode. I know some people are pretty angry that there wasn't retaliation right away, and that they had to wait till the end of the episode to see Scully actually try to encounter Leon, but I feel like they needed this episode so everyone could just take a breath. You see how they dealt with the trauma of the daughter being lost in their own ways, and then you come full circle at the end to show, okay, now somebody has to pay for this. So I think
Yeah.
they did an excellent job with all of that.
Oh yeah, for sure. They did a great job, and a lot of times, like with Snowfall, it's like the little things that kind of like stand out and just like make a whole scene. Like for instance, when Franklin went to see Teddy for the first time in this episode, and like Teddy was like, "Oh, you don't have your bodyguard with you," and Franklin was like, "Nah, I gave him the day off," but
Mm-hmm.
of course we know that the guy left because things were getting too heavy. So like I like those little kind of callbacks and references to previous stuff that's happened in the show. And
Exactly.
like you mentioned as well with the the braiding of the hair and stuff. So yeah, like that stuff is really really cool. But yeah, so was that all of your takeaways? Because I have some questions that need to be addressed, but
Okay, yeah,
I wanna
yeah,
make
oh
sure
yeah.
you're done first.
Oh no, that was just my takeaways for this
Okay.
episode. Let's hear these questions.
Okay. So first of all, so the first question I'll pose is this, right? A lot of people were absent in this episode. We didn't see Paul Davis or anything like that. And
Hmm.
one character I don't believe we saw also was T. And I wanted
Nope.
to ask you, because we already have a little suspicion about T, right? We
Hmm.
feel like she could be, possibly some sort of double agent, or she might backstab Franklin somehow, right? So I wanted to ask, do you think maybe T might be used to find out who the plug is? And like maybe she'll feed information back to, Manboy or Scully or something like that?
Yeah,
What do you think of the possibility of something like that happening?
I think that there's a very high possibility of that happening. I've heard rumblings and theories online that people think that T is actually in somewhat closely either related or a friend of Manboy. Because if you think about how she all of a sudden just appeared out of nowhere, and she's getting Franklin this information about when he's trying to find out when they were trying to find out if Scully was alive or not. You have to ask yourself, where does she get all this information from? And Franklin apparently hasn't thought about any of this other stuff because he's like, well, I can trust her. This is my ex, all because he stayed over there and then he slept with her in the last episode. But honestly, he really should be questioning these things. And as he sees that she's getting closer and closer to Louis, uh, yeah, I kind of feel like either she is working with Manboy or Scully, or they may approach her and have her be the one that threatens to take out somebody on the inside. And obviously, Louis, since Louis is the one that now she's working with at the club. So I really think that that's something that Franklin's going to have to be concerned about. And again, because they haven't really shown that he is suspicious of her at yet. I mean, yeah, they hinted to it when he saw that she was at the club all of a sudden, but they didn't really take it far further than that yet. So this is someone that he definitely needs to be mindful of, I think, and I could definitely see that happening where they can easily because if they know that she's messing around with Franklin, they can use her to get to do whatever they need to do. So we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, that's a high possibility that that's going to happen now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that there's definitely something there with that character. So I feel like she is being used by somebody to kind of spy on Franklin's operation. And like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Manboy. So yeah, that could be one way that they try to get the plug. Whether they succeed or not, who knows? But yeah, I definitely think Franklin is going to be backstabbed by a few people. Paul Davis being one of them too. So
Paul Davis, yep, definitely
yeah.
Paul Davis.
So the other question I had is a pretty deep conversation. I was actually going to bring this up last week, but I guess it kind of slipped my mind. And then I heard the Joe Budden podcast, and they were actually debating about this, right?
Uh-oh.
So this is going back to last week's episode, with the whole Leon incident,
Hmm.
where he shot the child and everything. So who was really at fault there? Because there's a theory going out that Leon wasn't actually in the wrong here, and that it was the driver of the other car that the girl was in. Because when he pulled up and saw Leon, the driver should have known, hey, I've got a woman and child in this car, so this
Yeah.
isn't the time to really do anything. So he should have just drove off, or just not acknowledged Leon, or well, he should have like tried to diffuse the situation somehow, instead of trying to kind of make a situation happen. So when he peeked into the other car and he was like, "Ain't that Leon?" Like, the way he said it seemed like he was ready for action, and that's obviously what that's
Yeah.
that's obviously what made the Leon and his friends react, right?
Yeah.
So this is a pretty in depth kind of, like, it's a pretty deep kind of conversation, like a back and forth conversation of who really is in the wrong, because Leon was really just reacting to what happened. And a lot of times with these gang shootouts and stuff, it's usually a split second situation that causes it to happen. So like
Hmm.
Leon, in that split second, him and his friends were like, "Oh damn!" Like, this could be it. Like, we, if we don't react, then they could get the drop on us or something.
Hmm.
So, do you think that the some of the blame should be on the people in the other car?
Well, yeah. I mean, the thing is this, how the episode started last week is that they were the ones to go after Leon first. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Leon at that point was not involved in any of the stuff that was happening with Franklin, but they made him involved by trying to take him out. Why, when him and his boys went to go get something to eat, and instead they shot Wanda. So I understand when Leon would see them again, he would be thinking about retaliation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I have to agree that the people that were in the car, though, they knew that there was a kid in the car. They knew that the girlfriend was also in the car. So the situation could have gotten diffused, but the way that it played out, it didn't. Because if you also recall, the guy who was driving around with the ices, the ice cream little machine, this guy was like right in the middle of the crosswalk. So that was why they stopped. Otherwise, they would have just kept driving.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, he got shot as well. It's kind of like it's hard to really decipher. Like, obviously, if you're in a vehicle and you know that you have people in that car that are vulnerable, you should take every precaution to say, okay, I can't react this way. But I kind of feel like when Leon saw them, he was going to have that reaction even before they started shooting, because they already went after him and his
Mm-hmm.
boys. So I kind of feel like they were going to react like immediately as soon as they saw these guys. It was unavoidable. Um, but yeah, the whole thing about Leon getting out the car afterwards and continuing to shoot at these guys. I mean, I thought they were already dead. But from the shot that we saw when people were getting shot, I thought they were already dead. But he wanted to make sure that they were dead. So, um, yeah, probably a little excessive, but you can't really blame them because again, they was there spying, but it's just the way everything played out. It played out too much where somebody was definitely going to go down.
Yeah.
Um, so it's hard to my take, my opinion, personal is if I know that I have someone in the vehicle that is vulnerable and somebody is after me, vice versa, I'm probably going to not put them in that situation, and just ride around. But I know that they're not. It wasn't in an area that Leon had been in before, so they obviously didn't think that he would be there and that they would be ready to take him out right then and there. But it's still, it's kind of like with all the stuff that's going on. If you go after somebody, you have to think, well, they can probably try to come after me as well at some point, no matter where I'm at. So they probably should have in the other car. They probably should have said, hold on, we have a child and a kid here. Let's handle this another way, or get them out the car and y'all go somewhere, and then y'all handle y'all shoot it out or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, they probably should have said something to alert them and say, listen, we have a woman and a child in this car. and then that probably would have stopped certain things from happening. But I kind of feel like either way it was going to happen because the emotions was high at that point, and they just was thinking about retaliation on both sides.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, maybe, the driver, like, instead of saying, is that Leon, he should have been like, we got kids in here, yo. And like, that would have
Yep.
gave an indication that, we can't really, do this right now. And I'm
But
sure, the people in the other car would have understood because
but
like you mentioned before, Leon said, we don't harm women and children. So what was you
exactly.
gonna say?
But here's a question, now, and this is probably taking it a little bit deeper because I don't know if they spoke about this on the Joe Budden show. Do you think that the viewers would have been angry if they saw that? Because they wanted, I'm pretty sure people wanted to see some type of retaliation on both sides, more so with Leon because they tried to take out Leon and they shot Wanda. So I think as a viewer, I would question, would people have been disappointed if, say, the brother is about to take out a gun and the driver tells him, like, wait a second, we got these two in the car. We shouldn't do anything. And then say, okay, yeah, you're right. And then just drive off. Do you
Oh
think the
yeah.
viewer would have been angry?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that would have been a boring scene. Like we wouldn't like that. Like we'd be like, well, what was the point in this scene? There was no action, you know. But
Yeah.
but I guess it's just one of those things where it's like you're having a discussion about the logic of the situation, but of course the way it panned out led to some very very entertaining drama happening. So of course
Yeah.
I in terms of the story I wouldn't have changed anything because that made things very intense, but yeah, like in terms of like when you try to analyze the actual situation and the behavior, that's where there's a need to kind of like debate on what was right, what was wrong, kind of thing. But yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, people wouldn't have liked that scene if it happened like you just said. So
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah. They wanted to see something because again, from the very beginning of the episode, if you're a Leon fan, you're fearing for his life. So you definitely want him to try to get some revenge. It's just that when he got the revenge, it was not what you anticipated with someone else being in that car getting shot. So it makes you think. Really, really makes you think about how that was handled. But I'm curious to hear what others think if they do leave their comments. If they think that the driver if they think that they also should accept some of that blame, or if it's all on Leon, or is Leon not at fault at all?
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the driver's dead, so the only person to blame is Leon. So, but yeah, and of course, the mother of the child, she's not letting up either. Like she wants blood too. So, at
Yep.
this point, there's it's a tough time for Leon. Like nobody wants to show him any mercy. So, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, was there anything else you wanted to kind of bring up? Oh, actually, I don't remember the preview. Actually, I don't know if I saw it or not. But did you have
Oh yeah.
anything? Did you have anything to bring up about the preview for the next
I,
episode?
I I do have some things to say. I did notice in that preview that now Leon has his afro back, so I don't really know if that's. I guess he figured, well, I'm already the police that they know who I am, so I'm gonna just stay with Franklin and be who I am. But the one of the main takeaways that I did see at that preview, and it's funny that you didn't see it because you raised the question earlier in this show, is that Reed had a conversation with Franklin. He said something to the effect of, "I was hoping you wouldn't let things get personal when this is really just business."
Mm-hmm.
So that goes to what you said earlier about Reed now maybe having second thoughts about Franklin because of how he reacted with the Leon situation, because he is the one that told him, "You got to deal with this Leon situation." Um,
Wow.
so that was said in the preview, and then at the end of the preview, it also looks as though the police confronted Franklin about the kid getting killed. They tried to arrest him, and then at the end of the preview, it looks as though Leon is getting arrested, and he's saying, "This is all your fault. This is all your fault." Again, it's a very short preview promo, so you don't really see everything. And of course, that they'll throw in things to try and make you think something is a certain way when it's something that's totally different. So we obviously have to wait until next week to see what happens. But the drama and the pressure and intensity will continue. Um, so that's a lot to look forward to. Uh, Also, the big thing about the episode is that they are expanding still, and they do go off somewhere to meet some other individuals that they feel they can do business with. Um, Trying to build, as Jerome said in the preview, an army that can help them to take out Manboy and Skully. So we'll see how that goes. Because they're also aware that some of these guys may not really know fully what they're doing, but they still want to try to get some help. So, like I said, it's going to be a lot more bloodshed, a lot more tragedy. At least it feels that way. So we'll see what happens. But preview is very good. It's just that, man, I do want to say one thing to people. If they haven't, you may not be a fan of Hot 97. You may not be a fan of some of the people on the radio show, but there is an Ebro interview that's floating out there that both Damson Idris and Amin Johnson did this past week, where they're talking about Snowfall season 4. They're talking about what they do as far as going into being an actor and a character in this show. But they did mention on that show that if you felt a certain type of way about what happened with Kevin, if you didn't like what happened with Andre, well, by the time you get to episode 9 and 10, we're really going to rip your heart out.
Oh.
That was the exact words that they said, and they said it's like a Game of Thrones in terms of a lot of things that are going to happen. But of course, we already know, at least we would hope the storytelling is going to be a lot better than Game of Thrones, because it already has been very good storytelling. Mm-hmm. It's just that they're trying to prepare people for a lot of things are going to happen that are going to really make you really, really sad. So they are preparing you for, like you said, a big death. I would say it's probably going to be more than one death that's coming in the next couple of episodes. But probably not until towards the end of the season, because they did say, like Damson mumbled 9 and 10. But again, it happened before that. But I definitely think something is going to happen by the end of the season for sure. So We'll see.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm gonna have to watch that interview and the preview for the next episode after we finish recording this, because that sounds crazy. But But yeah, was there anything else at all you wanted to kind of bring up and touch on before we end this off?
Oh no, I'm just going to make a comment, and this is just really my own opinion, so hopefully people don't get angry. Mm-hmm. You and I have had this conversation off air, so I feel like it's not really a big deal to say it now, but really I just want to say Snowfall is a really, really good show. I know that there are a lot of shows that you have Falcon and Winter Soldier, which dropped today, and obviously we're going to have a discussion about that as well. You have the Justice League movie, which also dropped last night, which some people are very excited for. And listen, I'm not knocking any of these shows, any of this stuff, but I have to say, whenever I think about a show that I am anxious, that I want to actually record, and that I actually love talking about, it's Snowfall, because I feel like the show is underappreciated, doesn't get quite as much attention as it should, and that is something that I hope does change. Because a lot of people will look at the show and they may think, well, there's maybe nothing that's original to the concept, but what the actors and the actresses put into these performances, I'm telling you, listen to that Hot 97 interview. Like, I believe they had Damson Idris mention on the interview, because he's walking around with the cane all season. He mentioned at one point he was walking around with that cane so much and limped over that he actually developed a hernia.
Whoa.
All because he's just acting as a character. So I kind of think, as viewers, we look at these people, we think they do an excellent job as with their performance, but we don't really think about how they deal with their mental health after that, when they try to decompress and de-stress and no longer become that character. Because I know that Omari Hardwick, a lot of people look at this guy and they're like, that's Ghost from Power. And I kind of feel like for the rest of his career, some people are going to still feel that, even though he'll be in other movies, they'll still feel that. So
Nah,
I say, oh,
he's Ghost for the rest of his life. Like I don't know what he's trying to do in these other movies and stuff he's doing, but he's still Ghost to me. So
yeah, but so yeah, so and there's nothing wrong with that. But I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that the show really is a show that you should check out. You can learn a lot from the show, and you can go back and check out some of the facts in terms of what actually happened with the crack epidemic if you wanted to. But I just feel like in terms of a show that really is must see TV right now, and again, FX and Snowfall, they're not paying me to say this. I legit believe that has to be one of the best shows on TV right now. It's no competition whatsoever. So definitely want to say you should check out that interview if you want to, but definitely check out the show if you haven't checked out Snowfall. It is a really good show. Excellent actors, and I'm very excited to see not only what happens, even though some stuff is going to be tragic, but I'm also very excited to see what happens with the cast after this show and how their careers continue to blossom, because they all do an excellent job on the show. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, you raised some good points, and that is something that not everybody thinks about. The mental health of the actors involved in these productions. Like they kind of have to do a lot of decompression to kind of like get out of character and stuff, and then they probably have a lot of fans who kind of like come up to them and call them by the character name and stuff, like like they're actually the character and stuff. And then we know from Power as well that some actors or actresses receive death threats. So
yeah, Michael Rainey Jr. Yep.
Yeah. So
Tariq, they really think he is Tariq.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So yeah, a lot does go into it, and we definitely want to give respect to the people behind Snowfall, because they're doing a phenomenal job right now. So
yeah, and I think John Singleton will be very proud of what they're doing so far this season. No doubt about that.
Indeed. So yeah, that's it for this week's Snowfall Aftermath. We thank you all for listening. Please do like, comment, and subscribe, because that only helps us. It ensures that we do come back and do this again and again and again for your favorite shows. So yeah, please do that. Also follow us on social media as well. I'm at Gary Swaby on Twitter, and Richard is what is it? Is it Rich Bailey Jr.?
Yep, you got it.
Rich Bailey Jr. So make sure you go follow us. Hit us up. Let us know what you think. And we will be back next week to recap Snowfall Season 4, Episode 6. So in the meantime, let us know your thoughts and theories. And we thank you all for listening. So peace out and take care of yourselves, people.
Peace.
Peace.